My oh my, is this the most fitting topic for today because I actually just got my blood work back. We're going to talk about estrogen and how to mitigate estrogen. And I'm going to even use my example now. This is going to be a perfect segue into how to introduce this. I'm going to talk about aromatase inhibitors, AI, okay, things like arimidex or anastrozole or aromasin, versus using DHT-derived anabolics like a Masteron or Primo to mitigate estrogen. There's a lot of misinformation out there about estrogen itself. I have another video I did on just estrogen, well, at least the basics, so you have an understanding of why you want estrogen in a certain place and why it's bad to have it too high or too low. But I'm really going to dive into the myths and the misconceptions around combating or managing estrogen with anabolics or AIs. Now, everybody has their different take. I'm going to give mine, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with others. So long as you have so long as you have a reason as to why you approach something a certain way, generally you're going to be okay. But if you're just blindly following what somebody's telling you, especially when it comes to a blind AI protocol of, oh, my testosterone is 500 milligrams a week, so now I need to do 0.5 milligrams every other day of arimidex. Okay, but why? Oh, well, that's because that's what the forum said, or that's what my coach told me, with no reference to blood work. That's the issue that we're really going to break down here. So before I get on my high horse, let me step off, and then I'll get back on. So let's focus around the AI conversation first. It's becoming very common within the bodybuilding community to vilify AIs. And where that misinformation comes from is that people don't understand that it's not the medication itself that is doing damage. It's the mismanagement of the medication and its application and how it affects your estrogen that causes those issues. When you overdose an AI, an aromatase inhibitor, so essentially you stop, alter, or inhibit the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. When that starts to crash your estrogen so low, you're going to get a lot of estrogen deficient side effects. It is not the pill that you are taking that is the issue. Now, it should pass through the liver, right? There are different methods of taking an AI, right? Essentially, there might be some secondary or tertiary effects over the long term. But when we look at the demonization of AIs, it is centered around people's inability to understand that it is not the AI itself, it is the effect that the AI brings. If my estrogen, for instance, I'm going to be completely upfront with you, my estrogen I just got back right now is at 142. That is nuts. The reason why it's so high and have allowed it, we wanted to see how much testosterone we can take, mitigate with just body fat control, ejection frequency, all those sorts of things, and then slowly introduce DHT derivatives, which I'll come to here shortly, to see if we can manage estrogen. And I'm here to tell you it's not effective, and I will explain why. But estrogen needs to be managed. If you're increasing the amount of testosterone or anabolics in general that you're having, you're going to have a heightened amount of testosterone, and you're going to have enzymes that are going to take that testosterone and convert it. And the goal is to manage that conversion so much that you keep estrogen in a normal range. You do not want to tank it. There are select times where you might in a competition prep or something like that where you want to create a next level of dryness, right? But understand you're also going to hamper fat loss if your estrogen is too low. That's another topic of discussion. But essentially the goal is to keep estrogen in a normal range. So all you're trying to do with that aromatase inhibitor is manage that conversion of testosterone to estrogen enough to keep it within the normal range. And please watch my estrogen video that I've done previously to really understand where I believe estrogen should be. But in a nutshell, within the normal reference range is where you should keep almost every marker. You're safe in that range. No one's ever had issues with keeping their estrogen normal, right? It's always when you crash it to hell or you raise it to heaven, which would be a positive, right? But you get what I'm saying. Now, shift focus into the DHT derivatives, the Primos and Masterons. First off, again, I could go make a million different videos on this topic, but we're going to keep this very simple. Masteron does not inhibit the aromatization of testosterone to estrogen. It simply masks the effects, the symptoms. So it's not lowering your estrogen. That estrogen is still present. In addition, there are other things that are happening with different anabolics that might act on the estrogen receptor, right? For instance, this testosterone converted to estrogen, and this estrogen is floating around your body, and it doesn't attach, for instance, to the estrogen receptor on your breast tissue, so you're not getting gyno, but that estrogen is still present, and it's not being flushed out. It either sits there, right, to take place of those receptors when they're free, or it sits there and builds up toxicity, even cancers. So excreting that estrogen is important, but also ensuring you don't have that much being converted. So when you use Masteron, you're getting this false sense of security that, oh, my estrogen is low, or it's being managed, but that estrogen is still there. It's just not acting on the tissues that manifest those side effects. Primobolan, legitimate primobolan, acts as somewhat of a suicide AI, where it attacks the enzyme, right? But again, the dosage, the amount of primobolan that you need to take to counteract that is going to vary. You're going to need to do extensive amount of blood work over time to see what that dosage is. And sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze, where I could just use a AI, which is easier. I don't have to do a ton of shot volume of Primo in order to combat the AI. And you should not be using another anabolic to combat AI. You should be using an anabolic to build muscle. That's where I think a lot of the issues come, is people try to game the game. And the reality is, testosterone is the best muscle builder in reality. It's the most bioavailable and identical compound, right? Leveraging that as much as possible, managing the estrogen is a lot better, in my opinion, especially when you deal with underground labs for Primobolan and Masteron. You're going to put another anabolic, foreign underground substance, right, possibly fake, into the body in order to manage the estrogen, and then not understanding how that affects it. So when we talk about managing estrogen, there's no cookie cutter approach, right? The only way you're going to verify what AI or the DHT derivative is going to do is through blood work. So a general approach that I always take with my clients is we start with the base, right? We start leveraging the testosterone, seeing what that does to our estrogen, and from there we make a decision. If we know that we're going to be using higher doses of testosterone and we don't want to introduce other anabolics and other variables, we might throw in an aromatase inhibitor. If we know we're going to keep testosterone manageable and it's not going to essentially be the driver of our off-season or growth or even our prep, we might leverage other anabolics to spread the load. Personally, for me, again, I'm a big testosterone and growth hormone guy. I think that those are really the drivers of growth, especially in the long term. So I might look more towards an AI, especially if you're able to manage the AI correctly in the estrogen. I think it's a lot easier than throwing in the variable of having these injectables like a Primobolan and Masteron. So again, a lot of things can come from this topic. Generally, what I'm trying to get out there is that you have two paths, but unfortunately, the first path, the AI path, in my opinion, is getting vilified too much because people just don't understand how to use it, and most coaches are just crashing your estrogen with AI and giving you cookie cutter dosages without actually doing the work. And on the flip side of that, there's a sphere within the coaching industry, some of whom have their own coaching certifications, who seem to think that introducing and leveraging anabolics to combat estrogen is the way to go. In my opinion, you should attack the estrogen directly. And just to preface all this before we shut this video, is there are ways to leverage and manage estrogen without either. Keeping your body fat in check, increasing injection frequency, right? Stress level, sleep. Those things should all be attacked first. The more that you can control your estrogen and manage it without medication or anabolics, that's the third option, and that's usually going to be the best. But there is going to be a point. And the last thing I'll say is, just because you're not experiencing side effects, noticeable visual or physical side effects, or even mental side effects from the heightened estrogen, does not mean that it's not wreaking havoc on your body. It is toxic. It is carcinogenic. Estrogen can cause damage. It can even inhibit growth. And estrogen itself is not anabolic. So having high amounts of estrogen, even if it increases IGF-1, works synonymously with it, is not something that you want to have. If you enjoy this information, please subscribe to my channel. In addition, if you'd like to know what it'd be like to work with me one-on-one as your coach and direct you towards your goals, fill out the application in the bio in this channel as well, or on my YouTube channel. In addition, if I sent this to you via DM and you want to know more about the process, just shoot me a message back, be like, hey coach, I love the information. Can I learn more about your coaching process? Be like, sure, buddy. I will absolutely help you and show you what the process is, and I'd love to get started.